Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back. This is Bobby Lee Bitcoin. We're here to do another episode of my podcast, Bobby Lee Bitcoin Podcast. And today I have a guest, my friend Eleanor, who works in higher education, and she's been in investing in crypto for about 5 years now. So Eleanor, welcome to the show. So
Thanks so
let's talk
much.
about your background in crypto and answer any questions you may have about cryptocurrency, about Bitcoin. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Um, I
So
guess, yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. Start.
so what got you into crypto 5 years ago around?
I think it's just it was a hunch, right? It was more of um, yeah, just to dabble in.
Yeah,
I think everyone was talking about it. It was a, different form of an asset. I think we were looking at diversification, and
yeah.
it was something that we might be interested in. And it was more like maybe one day it would be big.
Yes, yes. And who introduced you to Bitcoin and crypto?
It might have been you, actually.
Might have been
Like,
me.
yeah, I think so. Like 5 years ago, it must have been you, actually. It had to be.
Yeah. Do you remember what you bought some Bitcoin at the time?
Yes, I did probably
Yeah.
because, right. I mean, it made sense at the time. I think with with the market and the economy, and I think it, was a good time to just kind
Good.
of try it out.
Yeah, and I know that you're also investor in stocks, maybe real estate. So tell us about your overall sort of investment philosophy and how Bitcoin fits in.
Um, yeah, we have a little bit of real estate. Stocks are, just an interest. I think more of an interest than anything.
Yeah.
I work in higher education, so I'm not getting rich in higher education, right? But it's also just, yeah, it's also just following companies, things like that, that might do well. That
Yes.
for me to save on retirement, I guess, right, and plan for the future. And I think it's just a way to, I think with a family and like two kids, I think it's just easy for us to invest in their future.
In terms of, you mean for the stocks or for the Bitcoin?
I think everything,
Everything.
right?
Okay.
Everything. So some of everything, I
So
think, is
long
good.
term investment in mind.
Correct.
Yeah, not day trading, right?
Right.
So
Right.
Bitcoin's good for that. Bitcoin,
Perfect.
as I tell people, is really investment opportunity of a lifetime. I think people who are looking to invest in Bitcoin, who are investing in Bitcoin, should consider it as a long term investment, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that kind of time frame. Not certainly not 1 or 2 years,
And
much
that's
longer than
perfect,
that.
actually, because I don't have time to look at it, and I don't know what is going on
Yeah,
every
yeah.
day, and I think
Do
it's just scary
yeah.
looking at
Do
it.
you know the
So
price of Bitcoin lately?
I think it actually popped last week or so. I think,
Yeah.
right? It's like 21,000.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
I just
yeah.
happened to notice it.
Yeah.
But it's weird because it's actually kind of correlating with the market, and that's odd. But I don't
Yeah.
know if that was supposed to happen.
It's technically not supposed to happen. It's a different asset class than stocks. However, with the recent sort of in the last 2 months, the overall stock market has taken a tumble,
Hmm.
right? Tech stocks and high P ratio stocks have taken a tumble. Dow Jones, Nasdaq, and the reason it's taking a tumble is because of the fears in the United States with the recession and the rising inflation and rising interest rates. People think the economy will cool down really fast, and that's why the market took a big tumble. And in fact, the Fed raised rates right recently, so they're anticipating more rate increases, which will cause stocks to fall further, and that's what's happening now with the tumbling of the stock market. What we have is a liquidity crunch. So a lot of people who buy stocks on margin, they have to sell stocks or sell other assets to put money in for the margin calls. So that's why you see people selling gold, selling Bitcoin, selling homes, and selling other things to meet the margin call requirements. So this is a sort of liquidity contraction, and we do see a lot of asset classes fall during this time. Yeah.
Right. So I guess if you predict that stocks are probably going to fall, I think with the rising interest rates, what do you think Bitcoin's going to be at?
So in the short, now we're talking about short term. Okay, so short term, what I consider 3 to 6 to 9 months. In the short term, I personally think in the U.S. stock market is going to be under a lot of pressure. So I think it's gonna continue to go down even more than it has so far. It's so far has gone down 25-30% from all time high. It could go down double that, right? It could really, if you look back over the last 20 years, the worst of the stock market crashes is a fraction of the peak before that, right? So that can happen to stocks. And Bitcoin, unfortunately, I think there's more room for it to go down in the short term. Unlike the altcoins. So are you familiar with all the altcoins, the different coins out there aside from Bitcoin?
No, I don't know any
So
of them.
so maybe we won't go into that, but they've gone down a lot, right? Bitcoin's gone down by about 60%, 60% in the last 9 months, which is a lot. 60% is a lot, but compared to the other guys, it's a savior, right? Bitcoin hasn't really crashed to zero.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
keep seeing headlines, right? Like crypto crash and
Yeah. What do you see? Tell me what you see. Tell me your reaction. What do you think when you see these crypto crashing headlines?
I don't know. I'm just more like, everyone's either selling or what is everyone doing? I mean, yeah, I don't even know the details of which cryptocurrencies are actually crashing. I mean, I've
Okay.
seen Bitcoin come down
Yeah.
from like 60,000,
Yes.
right? And
What?
I think, yeah, maybe that was only 2 years ago. Maybe not even
No,
6 months ago,
60,000. It was 9 months ago.
9 months ago, like
Yeah.
November, December.
Yes,
No,
yes.
October. I
It
don't
was
know.
October, November.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's more like, yeah, where's the floor, right? I mean, yeah, it's come down a lot. 60% is huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when do you get in, right? So that's my other question, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, I was like kind of looking at it, I'm like, maybe it's a deal because I actually bought at, quite high.
Yeah. So you
And
could
so
dollar cost average it down.
maybe. And when is that point to get in, I guess,
Yeah.
again?
So buying Bitcoin, the way I say it is people mostly try to buy it at the best price, meaning the lowest price. But a lot of times that's not feasible because the Bitcoin price moves very rapidly. And plus, unlike the stock market where there are hours where it says, stock markets trade Eastern time from 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m. to like 4 p.m. Eastern time. So there's a window where people can pay attention. They're awake. They can pay attention to look at the stocks. And there's updates on CNBC, Bloomberg. You can watch and decide to sell some stocks or buy some stocks in this market hour. So Bitcoin, on the other hand, trades 24/7. It trades across all the exchanges all over the world in different time zones. And it trades 24/7. So no one can practically follow the price in the Bitcoin market all day long or all week long. So that's why Bitcoin might peak at a certain hour, it might dip, it might crash at a certain hour, and you just may not be available to make a decision to buy more or sell more.
Right.
Does that make sense? So that's why it's very hard to time the market, especially for Bitcoin. It literally can happen in the daytime, bright, middle of the day, sun, 12 noon, or it could happen in the wee hours of the morning. And it's really hard to catch it. What I tell people is if you want to invest in Bitcoin, the best time to invest is actually when you're most comfortable, when you're most eager to invest, right? Because I think of Bitcoin as a long-term investment. And if it's going to go up in 5, 10, 20 years, it doesn't really matter if you're buying slightly higher, whereas, if you waited a week or two, it might go down slightly a bit. What's important is you get on the train, right? It's more important to be on the train than to figure out which train seat you pick.
Got it.
Right. So you don't want to be so busy picking the train seat and you miss the train. Right. So get on the train, take the seat that's available, and then go for the long ride. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I noticed. I mean, it's like open. You can trade it any hour of the day, and it's
Yeah.
I don't know. It's anxious. It's anxiety. I think that it causes, right? It's just all over the place. And I don't know. So it could be good or bad, I guess, because you can buy it any time, but at the same time, you're losing money or making money at every second.
Yeah. So don't look at it. Don't
That's
look
right.
at it like that, because if you're looking at it on a second by second basis, you're gonna go wild. You're gonna go crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for us, I think the idea of just buying it, letting it sit, not touching it, not looking at it is great. No maintenance ish, I think. I don't know if there's any maintenance.
No maintenance.
Perfect. And so there's no need to sell, maybe buy some more.
Yeah.
And that's really the extent I do.
Yeah, good. I think I should mention this point. I think most people don't do this, but I want to make this sort of bring up this warning, which is don't leverage buy. So don't go on margin loans. Don't use leverage to buy and be greedy, right? Because it's, I think Bitcoin is too volatile. People who are greedy, who try to buy on leverage using multiple X sort of, they really get burned, because then if Bitcoin falls a little bit, they get margin called and they have to sell their whole position and they really lose a lot of money. So if you're investing, if you're a retail investor, if you're just everyday person buying Bitcoin for the long term, Allocate a small percentage of your total portfolio, 1 or 2%, no more than 5%, and then buy, maybe spread out your buying over time. It's what they call dollar cost averaging over weeks or months. And don't use leverage. Just buy with whatever free cash flow you have. That's not your rent money, not your mortgage payment, not your food, not your bills, grocery bills and credit card bills, right? So
Right.
make sure you do that.
No, and that's a good reminder. And I think generally, we're more on the, I guess, traditional investors. And so, we don't do too much of any, options and things like that. So I think, keeping it safe, long-term investments, saving for retirement. So we'll see.
Yeah. So tell me about your goals. So you're investing in stocks and Bitcoin. How are your expectations in terms of your stock returns over the next 5 years, 10 years compared to your Bitcoin return expectations?
That's hard to say. I don't know. Hopefully Bitcoin pans out in 5 years. That would be great. Maybe it takes longer.
Now, what does it mean for it to pan out?
I don't.
So now
okay.
it's at $22,000. You bought it maybe higher, maybe lower. Both.
I mean, I'd be happy if it went back to like 30 or 40,000.
Okay.
But I think the idea is right. Like, I have young family, right? You have young kids. So in 10 years, we'll be paying college tuition. I think that's the top of mind, I think, for a lot of students. And plus, I work in higher education, right?
Yes,
so the money issue is huge, right? But you see all these parents and families that don't really save for retirement, or they don't have that ability to.
Yes.
And so, so I think for us, right, it's just in 10 years and then maybe 15 or 20 years, what would that look like? Hopefully Bitcoin would move a little faster than stocks. I think stocks were a little bit more conservative, because, we're just kind of everyday, people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so sometimes mutual funds, sometimes, some equities, but nothing too, risky.
So speaking of that, have you been able to purchase Bitcoin or Bitcoin related stuff through your brokerage account?
No, I can't do it through the brokerage account, right? So I created a Coinbase
account. So you buy it through Coinbase.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't know there was another way to do
it.
No,
there might be. There's some funds that are listed that you could buy from a stock brokerage account, but the true Bitcoin ETF is not out yet. There's a futures Bitcoin futures ETF that's out, but the real Bitcoin spot ETF is not out yet. So I think a lot of the mass market is still waiting. It might take years actually for that to be out. So there's a lot of it's playing itself out slowly, the regulation of Bitcoin and the trading of it.
And that's interesting. You bring up ETF, because I think that was the hype. I think there are a few ETFs that are out there, but they don't track the price very well.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that is. And is that even a good alternative?
I personally, and if you have the capability of buying your own Bitcoin on Coinbase, let's say, and then you storing it safely using a cold storage wallet, then you should go with that route. If you really I don't want to deal with another exchange, I just want to buy it through my Charles Schwab or Ameritrade or E-Trade, then maybe the Bitcoin funds account, those might be good. But again, the transparency is not as high for that.
Right.
But it's simple. You just click. It's just like buying a stock. It's easier like that. And you can even buy it for retirement accounts, college savings accounts and stuff like that.
But you think it tracks the price?
It's supposed to.
Yeah.
It's supposed to. I haven't done the research.
I see.
But based on my initial findings, it's a little bit opaque.
Right. And there's a ton out there already. So I don't
know
the one that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Your
So they're not
all
different. They're not all equal.
Right. So I think you'd have to do more research.
Yeah. So here's one example. So MicroStrategy. Have you heard of that company?
No.
So MicroStrategy is a publicly listed company. Michael Saylor, the name of the CEO. So he's famous, and his company's famous for being one of the very first public companies that invested in Bitcoin and bought a lot of Bitcoin for the company to hold on its balance sheet, right? So if Bitcoin price was to go to the moon, go off the roof, then his company MicroStrategy would be worth a lot of money. So if you just buy that stock, it's sort of like a small proxy for Bitcoin price. But however, recently, because Bitcoin price has cratered, so the MicroStrategy stock itself has also cratered. So that's another way to buy some stocks that are highly correlated with Bitcoin price. So MicroStrategy comes to mind. Some of the Bitcoin mining stocks come to mind. For example, Tesla, on the other hand, also has Bitcoin, but because they're a much larger company, they sell solar, they sell cars, they sell all these electric cars and stuff like that. So the Bitcoin holdings, even though they have over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, but overall it's such a small portion. So the Bitcoin price moving up and down will not impact Tesla stock as much.
Oh, I see. You mean Tesla itself, the company
Owns Bitcoin. Yeah, they're one of the
see.
few tech companies that own Bitcoin. Yeah, it just happened. It just happened in the last year and a half.
It's funny, actually. On my Facebook feed, it comes up with like Tesla NFTs or buy this, buy that. Like, what is all that? Is that a whole different other topic?
It's a whole nother topic.
Oh,
It's a
okay,
whole
let's not
different
get into
topic.
it.
Yeah.
It's so weird. It's like spam or something.
Is it really?
I think so.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Do you invest in NFTs?
No, I don't even know what that is. I can't even explain what that is.
NFTs are what they call non-fungible tokens.
Yeah, I got that part.
And they're a digital token, kind of like Bitcoin is a digital token. The difference is one is fungible, one is not fungible. Fungible just means whether the tokens themselves are interchangeable without knowing the difference. So, for example, if you take out a dollar bill, I take out a dollar bill, they're both $1 bills, but they're physically different because they have different serial numbers. Maybe they're printed in a different year. So the date and the year on the bill is different, the serial number is different, but they're all $1 bills. So in reality, in society, my $1 bill, I can trade it with your $1 bill with no consequence. Does that make sense?
Right.
However, if we just say you have a Picasso painting and I have a Monet painting or a Van Gogh painting, they're both paintings. Mm-hmm. They could be paintings of the same scene, but because the paintings by different artists and different composition, it's not like a 1-for-1 trade. You can't really do that. Another thing about fungible, it means that it can be broken up, divisible. Divisible would mean that it can be broken into smaller pieces and also can be formed back up. So $1 bill can be split into quarters, dimes, or you could make several $1 make it into $5 bill, right? So money, you could do all of that. That's fungible and divisible and recombinable. Okay, whereas paintings, you can't. You can't say, oh, I have a Picasso painting. Let me give you half a Picasso painting by sawing it in half or cutting it up in half. That would really screw up the value, right? So that's non-fungible. It's kind of like a bottle of wine. You can't break up the bottle of wine or the painting. I see. Or even a diamond, right? Whereas gold is fungible. So if you have bar of gold, you can cut it in half. It's divisible, and then now you have 2 half bars. And then later you could melt it back up and make it 1 full bar. It would be the same weight, same thing, you just recast it. It would be the same thing. Yeah, so generally speaking, for monetary good, fungible, divisible are good features to have. It makes it more convenient.
Right.
Yeah, so Bitcoin is better like that than as money.
I see.
Yeah.
And I think the confusing part of it, right? It's not a physical coin, although it's called Bitcoin. Where does that name come from? Like,
great question. You got to ask the creator. Yeah. It's invisible in the sense that we don't see it in the room, right? But email, I'll give you an example. Email or website, is it invisible?
True. It is invisible.
Right? It is invisible. It doesn't mean that it's not useful, right? You have an email account. You may have several. I have an email account. I may have several. And we have important things that go through our email accounts. So it's very real to you and me, email, even though it's not visible anywhere here in the studio.
Right.
And same thing with like digital music, right? Movies, streaming movies, right? Only when it's shown on the TV, oh, here's a movie. But aside from that, it's pretty invisible. So a lot of digital things are invisible, but they can be very valuable and very useful.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest concept, I think, right? Like, what are you buying? What am I actually buying?
Okay, that's a good question. So Bitcoin is a digital asset class created by Satoshi Nakamoto, 12, 13 years ago. And it has several functions. It promises to be electronic money, and it limited in issuance to 21 million units of Bitcoin. And you can have smaller units, half a Bitcoin, a tenth of a Bitcoin. But overall, when you add up all the Bitcoin in the world, they'll never exceed 21 million. Today, there's already 19 million in existence, and they're bringing out more every year through the mining process. Now, with a Bitcoin, what you're buying is you are essentially having a private key, like a password, to an online blockchain account that holds the amount of Bitcoin you have in that account. So when you buy 1 Bitcoin, someone, an exchange or the seller, will send you 1 Bitcoin to your account. And when it's in your account, you own it because you have the private key to untangle it, unlock it, and send it to somewhere else.
Wait, so who are the sellers?
So for you to get Bitcoin, you have to get it one of three ways. Okay. So for any person, I don't care if you, me, or anyone who's new to Bitcoin, if anyone wants to acquire Bitcoin, there's only three ways to do it. The first way is through mining. Mining is a traditional way where you use computers to spin up these programs to do calculations for the network, for the Bitcoin network. And the Bitcoin network will reward you with small amounts of Bitcoin for the hard work you've done. So that's a way to get it for free. But it's technically not free because you spend a lot of resources, time, energy, computing power, electricity, and all the management of it to actually get that amount of free Bitcoin. So nothing in life is free, no free lunch. The second way is for you to buy it from someone else. You could buy from someone else as a third party. You could buy it from me, buy it from an exchange, buy it from someone who's selling it, or buy it from an ATM. Like a Bitcoin ATM, you put money in and you get the Bitcoin.
I've seen that.
Yeah, you could do that at the gas stations, the casinos in Las Vegas.
Super weird.
You could do that, okay? So that's buying it from a seller. And that's why I mean a seller. The seller could be a personal seller. It could be the ATM operator. It could be through an exchange.
Got it.
Or it could be some anonymous seller that you hook up with, some friends and family, whatever. The third way to get Bitcoin is actually get paid in Bitcoin through goods and services. If you bake some brownies, bake a cake for your neighbor, they may pay you in Bitcoin. If you drive Uber or rideshare, someone can pay you in Bitcoin, even though I don't know if Uber takes that. But the idea is that you could do stuff. You could mow someone's lawn, you could babysit, or you could give a speech, and people can pay you in Bitcoin. And I've done that. I've given speeches, keynote lectures, and the organizers would pay me in Bitcoin for that service. Right.
Wow.
And by the way, just because I get paid in Bitcoin, I still have to pay taxes, right? As a U.S. citizen, I have to pay taxes globally. So we still pay our taxes, just that the form of payment is Bitcoin. Does that make sense?
I see.
Yeah.
Do they actually ask for that?
Who?
Your income.
Well, every year as Americans, we file these 1040 tax forms, right? And then you self-report. You report what income you've earned, what deductions you're taking, what capital gains and losses, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of taxes.
I mean, who's accepting Bitcoin at this moment, and does it even make sense to,
Yeah, that's a great question. Bitcoin is payment, right? So today, unfortunately, not a lot of stores and merchants accept Bitcoin yet in the United States. There are exceptions. There's some coffee shops, some casinos, some venues will accept Bitcoin. But the reality is the vast majority of businesses today, commerce, are not conducted in Bitcoin. You go to McDonald's, you go to Walmart, you go to Target, you go to watch a movie, you buy a car. Most of these places don't accept Bitcoin. There are exceptions, okay? Most of these don't. However, my perspective is it's not a big deal because I will only want to spend my Bitcoin after the investment has gone up a lot in value, right? Because I'm investing in Bitcoin for the long term. I want the 20x back, or I want the 100x return.
Right.
So if I want my 20x return, 100x return, I better wait for it. I better have the patience to wait for that. So maybe that's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years. Okay. But when that time comes, do I care about whether the Tesla dealership or the movie theater or the coffee shop, Starbucks take Bitcoin?
Right.
Not really. I really wouldn't care.
And it doesn't sound like it's worthwhile to pay a $5, $10 movie ticket. Maybe, I don't know how much.
Yeah, it's not so much not worthwhile. It's just not a big deal. Because if I've made my 50x, 100x return, I can always sell that Bitcoin legitimately on an exchange to someone privately and then get the money in my bank account and then use that money to pay for the movie ticket, buy the car, or go to the restaurant. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So to me, it's not as important to be able to pay for things, but even today, a lot of online commerce does. So there are online travel agents that take Bitcoin. There are online VPN operators that take Bitcoin. There's online stores that take Bitcoin, right? So hotels and stuff like that, you can pay for it in Bitcoin today.
But that's today. So in 10 years, 20 years, you do want to be able to utilize this form of currency.
I think there'll be more and more. My personal opinion is there'll be more and more. If you didn't know this, in the last year or so, 2 countries have come out to legitimize Bitcoin as legal tender in their country.
Yeah, okay. I've heard.
Yeah, so the first is El Salvador.
That's right.
The second is the Central African Republic in Africa. So these 2 countries have come out and made it law that it is legal tender. And what does that mean, legal tender? It means that in that country, every business, every transaction, you allow the customer to pay in Bitcoin. So if you're a hotel, if you're McDonald's, if you're Starbucks coffee, if you're a supermarket, right, you're compelled to accept Bitcoin. And that's crazy, right? That's a new
Yeah.
thing. Only
Yeah.
only those two countries. It hasn't happened in the U.S. yet.
Wait, so how does that work? So if a country,
Mandates it.
yeah, if they mandate it, so
Yep.
what, the country itself
They say
purchases a
Bitcoin's legal
bunch,
tender.
yeah, so they have to purchase a lot in
They
the open
they
market
don't
to have it
have
free
to. They
capital.
do, but they don't have to. You don't need to have the Bitcoin in order to accept Bitcoin.
True. Oh, so then actually, then your local citizens would have to be investing in Bitcoin or at least own
Not
it.
no, not true either, because you don't have to force people to buy Bitcoin, because paying in Bitcoin is optional. You can still pay in
Right.
US dollar,
Oh, I
pay in your
see.
local currency.
Gotcha.
But if you happen to have Bitcoin, you can pay in Bitcoin.
I see.
Does that make it's opt in?
Yeah.
Right. This is the most freedom, most respectful way to do it. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I don't know. And so you think, the U.S. will catch up to that eventually? I don't know. What's
The
yeah,
U.S. I think what I like about the U.S. is, as a free country, we the people, right? We the people. That's how the Constitution starts. Meaning the government is set up by the people, run by the people. It's run for the people, right? So as long as we the people want something, we get to do it.
right.
And obviously, there's a lot of controversial laws going back and forth and stuff like that, Supreme Court. But we don't want to get into all of those details. But the point is, with the republic, we have the state laws, and then we have the national federal laws. So as an example, in Las Vegas, my common example is marijuana, right? If enough people in the state want to allow for marijuana, and as long as there's no federal law blocking it, then in the state it can be legal. And this is what happened to Nevada. So Nevada, recreational marijuana use is legal. And I know it's happened in California, but not all states treat it like that.
Right.
So if one day a state wants to legalize cocaine, it could, in
Right.
theory,
Right.
but most likely not, right? But steroids and I don't know, whatever, all these drugs, alcohol, for example, right?
But it
Alcohol is
sounds-
legal, right?
so
Even
it
though
sounds
some
like-
people are morally opposed to it, right?
Yeah, but it sounds like I think it's the demand. So if the consumers, the everyday people, citizens, demand this,
Yes. So that's
Then
what's going to
possibly.
happen. Yes. So I don't know if you've read my book, but talk about the regulation. It's happening slowly, and I think over the next 5 years, 10 years, it's going to sort of get its act together and really allow for Bitcoin to flourish both in the U.S. and around the rest of the world. Now, there will be exceptions. There will be countries who are going to be very strict and very, close-minded. And those countries will never allow Bitcoin to be freely used by the people. And generally speaking, those countries are usually the authoritarian countries, where there's a single leader, they want things done their way, and they don't take input from
Right.
the users. So that's that.
yeah.
Good.
Okay. Yeah, I have actually read your book, and it was good.
Yeah, you
it
liked
was a
it?
very good introduction, I think.
What did
to
you
the
like about
whole-
it? Let's tell our podcast audience.
I mean, I think it's very real, right? It's it's a history. I think it starts with history about where it came from, who
Yes.
started this, like what is mining, what are the different forms of holding this piece of, I guess, currency or this asset, I guess. Defining hard case. What is it? Cold storage.
Cold storage,
hard
hardware
storage,
wallet.
so-
Yep.
But yeah, so I think it's throughout a lot of interesting terms, and I think it makes a little bit more sense, when you hear the headlines or see the headlines, right? But it's very optimistic, right? It's for sure. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hopefully maybe one day, we'll see the optimism, But I think right now with the current economy, I think it's just hard to see past that, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, I guess, thick skin or just. Yeah, like surfacing, I guess. I mean, but that's everything, right? And that's like stocks and things like that. And I think it's a good reminder to not short sell or whatever, right? It's like the first sign of, of a a decline or whatever. And I think that goes with stocks and bonds and everything else as well.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it was good. It was really well written for like an everyday, I guess, investor, or even then it's just an everyday person, I think, right? Trying to learn about what Bitcoin is. So it was good. I mean, that's where, 5 years ago, I think when we started, or when I just, all, dabbled in this, like, I don't even know what I'm buying. It was more of like the hunch of maybe this will work one day. Maybe this will we'll hit the jackpot,
Yes.
maybe that's the investment of our time. But I have no idea what it is exactly that I'm buying, right?
Yeah. So there is some trust involved. You have to trust in the people giving you the advice.
Right.
Because in the end, you can't possibly know everything, right?
Right.
So when you buy stocks, when you buy gold, when you buy jewelry, when you buy Bitcoin, you have to sort of trust whom you consider to be the experts and get their opinion on it. Why this is a good investment? Why is this a good purchase? And you have to sort of agree with them. If you don't agree with them, don't do it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So it comes down to that.
Yeah. And I think it's helpful, right? I mean, just being longtime friends to, see your point of view, but also see your passionate side of this. And,
Yes.
I think that's telling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Good. Well, thank you so much for coming on to my podcast, for being here on the Bobby Lee Bitcoin podcast. And any final words?
Thanks for having me. I mean, this was fun. I think, hopefully this is helpful.
Yes.
To everybody just like me, I guess, right? Who's just kind of learning the hoops of this.
Yes. And would you recommend the book?
I will. I would. I mean, definitely.
Good.
It's all on Amazon. It's great. It's good for really new investors, I think, into the Bitcoin space for sure.
Good. Help me write a review.
I will.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you, Eleanor, and good to see everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Bobby Lee Bitcoin podcast, and see you all again soon. Bye-bye.